I poisoned my husband so I could go on vacation alone. At least, that's what I thought I was doing. Turns out, he was 10 steps ahead of me the entire time, and by the time I understood his response, my marriage was already over. The night before our flight to Goa, I crushed oysters into the pasta. Not enough to kill him, not even enough to send him to the hospital, just enough to make sure he couldn't get on that plane. The plan was simple, elegant even. Mild food poisoning, weakness, maybe a fever. He'd insist I go without him so the tickets wouldn't go to waste. And I would finally have the vacation I had spent an entire year saving for. No takeout coffee, no ride shares, no impulsive shopping. Just discipline for the dream of warm ocean water, sunrise surfing, neon beach parties, and the intoxicating feeling of being completely free. Meanwhile, my husband Artyom was planning to bring his laptop and a book about growing bonsai trees. Bonsai. We were flying across the world, and he wanted to sit in a hammock trimming miniature branches. "Are you serious?" I snapped over dinner that night. "We're traveling to the other side of the planet, and you're going to study trees in pots?" He calmly set down his teacup. That calmness always irritated me, but that night, it felt unbearable. "Lena," he said gently, "we already agreed. You surf, I relax. Silence, shade, a hammock. Perfect compromise." Something inside me hardened right then. This vacation would be mine alone. We were opposites in every possible way. I chased adrenaline, noise, motion. He preferred stillness, order, quiet mornings. During our first 2 years together, his calm felt like shelter after the chaos of my younger life. Later, it began to feel like a swamp. The more I struggled, the deeper I sank. The man who once grounded me had slowly become an anchor chained to my ankle. Artyom had an old oyster allergy. Nothing dramatic, just stomach distress, dizziness, exhaustion. But while scrolling through a travel forum weeks earlier, I found something interesting. If oysters were combined with a certain antihistamine, the reaction intensified. Chills, fever, total weakness. Exactly what I needed. So I made pasta with oyster sauce. "New recipe," I smiled. "Try it." He ate every bite, even complimented it. That night, he tossed and turned. Perfect. I handed him a pill. "Here, probably some seafood in the sauce. Take this for the allergy." Morning came. He looked ghostly pale, drenched in cold sweat. "Lena, I can't handle a flight like this," he rasped. Inside me, fireworks exploded. It worked. "Oh no, that's awful," I said, forcing concern into my voice. "But you're right, flying like this is dangerous. The trip shouldn't go to waste, though. I'll go, rest for both of us." He nodded weakly and closed his eyes, and I floated to the airport on wings made of my own brilliance. The first 3 days were paradise, salt in my hair, sun on my shoulders, surfing at dawn. My social media glowed with proof of happiness. Me on a board, me dancing barefoot at midnight, me, golden, radiant, alive. "Miss you, get better soon," I captioned one post. His replies were short, beautiful, recovering slowly, nothing more. On the 4th morning, I woke up shaking. My skull felt like it was splitting open. The thermometer blinked, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The hotel doctor spread his hands helplessly. Tropical fever, hard to say what triggered it. Bed rest, fluids, medication. Just like that, paradise slammed shut. The ocean was 10 yards away, close enough to hear, impossible to touch. My insurance barely covered anything. The rest drained from my account as quickly as my tan faded. But the worst part was the silence. That same Artyom-style silence I had run from. Except now, there was no comfort in it, only shame. Hot, sticky, unavoidable. I called him one night, sobbing. "I feel horrible. You can't even imagine." He paused, then said quietly, "I can imagine, Lena. Very well, actually. Funny, isn't it? You're by the ocean, and we're both sick." Something in his voice felt wrong, too even, too controlled, but I was too ill to think clearly. A week later, I dragged myself home. No tan, no strength, wallet empty. The apartment smelled like fresh pastries, and someone was in the living room. A woman. My stomach dropped. I pushed the door open. There he sat, healthy, rosy, very much alive. Beside him were our neighbor, Aunt Valia, and a delicate young woman with glasses, her hands dusted in flour. Artem stood and smiled. "Lena, perfect timing. Meet Anya, Valya's niece. She's a microbiologist." The girl lifted calm gray eyes toward me. "Hello." Artem told me about his unusual illness before the trip. It intrigued me. I brought testing kits, took samples. Turns out it's a rare type of foodborne reaction. My pulse roared in my ears. She continued gently. "Oysters combined with a specific antihistamine can mimic poisoning almost exactly. Artem described your dinner before departure. I tested the leftovers from the fridge." She tilted her head. "I have the lab results if you'd like to see them." The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. He knew. From the very beginning. His sickness had been theater, but far more sophisticated than my cheap trick. While I burned with fever overseas, he had been calmly dismantling my plan piece by piece, with a microbiologist, with lab reports, with surgical precision. I couldn't hold his steady gaze, and the way he looked at Anya, with quiet respect, I realized he hadn't looked at me like that in years. "I understand," I whispered, and locked myself in the bedroom. The next morning, I found an email from him with an attachment. "Lena, I really was sick, but not because of oysters, because you were capable of doing this." Anya confirmed everything. Oyster sauce, the antihistamine in the pill you gave me, it all matches. I didn't want a scandal. Instead, I decided to give you exactly what you wanted. Freedom, loneliness, your perfect vacation without me. Then came the line that made my breath stop, about the fever. "Remember when I asked you to take my sunscreen, the blue jar? It wasn't sunscreen. It was a dermatological ointment with a mild irritant, completely safe, doctor tested. In a hot climate, it produces exactly what you experienced: fever, rash, weakness, gone within a week." My hands began to shake. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he wrote. "I wanted you to feel what I felt: helplessness, isolation, shame. Now we're even. The divorce papers are with my lawyer. The apartment is legally mine. But I'm not cruel. You have 1 month to move out. I'm sorry I couldn't be your adrenaline, but I can't live with someone willing to poison me for a vacation. A." Attached were the lab results, stamped, documented, undeniable. Oysters, antihistamine, chemical composition of the ointment, evidence of everything. I slid down onto the bedroom floor, phone trembling in my hands. And for the first time in years, I cried not from anger, but from horror at myself. He hadn't just exposed me, he had taught me a lesson. Cold, precise, absolutely fair. I tried to remove him from my path, so he removed me from his life, forever. Now I rent a small room on the edge of the city. Same office job, same coffee machine I used to walk past while saving for Goa. My coworkers know we divorced. They whisper, speculate. Yesterday, I saw him at a cafe with Anya. They leaned over a tablet. She was showing him photos of plants. He smiled that smile, the one I once adored. I walked past. He didn't notice. Or pretended not to. The scariest part isn't that he outplayed me. It's that he forced me to see who I had become. Small, cruel, willing to betray someone who loved me for 3 weeks on a beach. The taste of that realization is bitter, far more bitter than the oyster pasta I fed him. The boomerang came back, not as tropical fever, but as the freezing understanding that the true villain of my life was me. and I crossed the point of no return without even noticing. Tell me, have you ever regretted something only when it was already too late to fix it? Share your story in the comments.